In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Come, Holy Spirit, come to this place. Fill this room with your presence. Breathe through each one of us. Allow us to come to know the true love of our Heavenly Father. Holy Spirit, we ask that you guide us. Fill our minds with the information that we need to know so that we might truly come to serve you more fully. And Heavenly Father, we place all of our needs before you. We place our material goods, everything we have, at your leisure to use as you wish. Father, we ask that you just take all of these things and bless them, anoint them, so that we might be able to constantly give ourselves over to you completely. Loving Father, who feeds the birds of the air and arrays the lilies of the field, your care for us knows no bounds. By the power of the Holy Spirit, grant us the grace of an ever deeper trust and dependence on your care and protection. Inspire in us a radical generosity and discipleship that mirrors your own bottomless generosity and will form us into the sons and daughters you created us to be. With you, all things are possible. Please enliven our hearts with a desire to do all that we can to free ourselves from the burden of debt, pride, and fear, so that reborn into the glorious freedom of the children of God and building on a firm foundation, we can focus on sharing your love with the world around us. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus and through the intercession of our Blessed Mother Mary, Saint Joseph, and Saint James. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. So we're blessed to have with us this evening Bryce Timberlake. So in a particular way, I just want to thank all those who are here in the room, and I want to thank all those who are watching from home sometime during this week. We certainly appreciate all of you who watched last week and were able to give us feedback. And so just before Bryce presents, our topic this evening is getting out of debt. And so I'll have a chance to speak after Bryce again, but Bryce, who's in formation for the permanent diaconate, and God willing, next May will be ordained, has had really a passion with his wife, Dawn, in our parish for years on really providing financial peace and helping people get out of debt. And so back in 2015, we did a program together called Choose His Life, where we actually asked the entire parish who was here at the time to go through financial peace. So we canceled all of our normal meetings. And really what we were trying to do was to give people the freedom of following God's will. And so what does that look like? By the grace of God from me, when I graduated from college, I had not had any of these things. And I had about $30,000 of college debt, and my wife had $20,000 of college debt. And I was driving a pickup truck between Ridgeway, Pennsylvania and Penfield, Pennsylvania. And I was blessed to listen to, I think it was Dave Ramsey, I can't verify that for sure, but I'm driving over this mountain, and this guy's on the radio talking about following God's will in your life. And what he said was, if you're a Christian, you have an absolute moral obligation to pay your debts. So if you take a debt and God calls you to do something, then what you have to say is, excuse me, God, will you please wait while I pay off my debt? And he gave the example, this was a true story, there was a Protestant congregation that was going to build a church. And it was about a $3 million project. So they were talking about all the ways they were going to raise money. And a benefactor came and said to the pastor, I will write the check for $3 million. But you need to convince the congregation and your finance council that they just have to trust in God. And they have to commit to not taking a loan. If they do that, I'll write you the check and the whole thing will be built. But you can't tell them I'm going to pay for it. I just need them to trust in God. So the pastor's pretty excited. He goes back to his congregation, and it was like when we were at Old St. James, they were bursting at the seams. They needed a new church, and he used all the scripture he could. He used all his charisma that he could, and he failed miserably. And that man in his congregation gave him $0 for that campaign. So at that point in my life, it just gave me a profound conversion and a distaste and a hatred for debt. So in 2000, I had paid off our student loans, my student loans, Laura's student loans, cards. We didn't owe anything. And that's actually how I came to work for the church, because Father Brian Owen said to me, "Oh, well, you can come work for the church. You don't need much money. You don't have any debt. Come, follow me." Like, you're killing me. But I knew that he was right, and it was only because of those decisions and really that talk I had heard that I had paid the debt, that when I was called, there was no debt, and I could just say, "Yes, Lord." And so I'll finish the rest of my story later after Bryce, because then Bryce comes back into my story. But I do want to thank Bryce and Don really for the incredible work they've done in our parish to help us get out of debt. And he's just going to give us a short talk on that this evening, because hopefully you'll hear him and be inspired, and then you get to go to a 9-week course on getting out of debt, which is even better. Right, Bryce?
Well, thank you. And I'm excited because I have my favorite little girl, Rose, over there to come listen. I see her every Sunday. So not last week, the week before, we were in a homiletics week at St. Meinrad's in Indiana. And some of that, the readings that they had, I actually wrote one of my homilies. Since I'm not ordained, it's going to be a reflection on not this Sunday's readings, but the 24th Sunday of the Unforgiving Servant for next Sunday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of read that, because what I did is I asked them if it was okay if I could kind of roll in some of our capital campaign information into it. And Deacon, you might have to fix some of the numbers in there. But I want to kind of go through, and really that's also to kind of give Deacon and Father an idea of whether or not they're going to fire me and not have me do homilies. So, but we'll start off, and I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 18, starting with verse 21. Then Peter approaching him, asked him, "Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him? As many as 7 times. Jesus answered, "I say to you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, his children, and all of his property, in payment of the debt. At that, the servant fell down and did him homage and said, 'Be patient with me, and I will give you back in full.' Moved with compassion, the master of the servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When that servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, 'Pay back what you owe.' Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back.' But he refused. Instead, he had him put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed and went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, 'You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me. Should you not have pity on your fellow servant as I had pity on you?' Then in anger his master handed him over to the torturers until he should pay back the whole debt." So our gospel reading from Matthew is the parable entitled The Unforgiving Servant. I'm sure you listened and immediately thought that the servant was a complete jerk for having his debts forgiven, but then not forgiving the debts of his fellow servant that owed him money. That was considerably less, by the way. The king was going to sell the servant's wife, children, and lands until the servant begged for mercy. Can you imagine yourself being placed in that position today? Could you imagine that bankruptcy was not an option, and that if you didn't pay off your mortgage payment, your student loan, your car or credit cards, that the government would come in and take everything? Break up your family, take your lands, and sell you into slavery. Well, it doesn't sound too far from the truth today, does it? Even in our first reading from Sirach, the wrath of anger and of hateful things, and our second reading from Romans, we live for the Lord. And even in our responsorial psalm, that the Lord is kind and merciful, slow to anger, and rich in compassion. Isn't it amazing that the truths that were written thousands of years ago are still true today, and that those truths will set you free? Houston, we have a problem. Quoting that great line from the movie Apollo 13, well, St. James, we have a problem. In 2004, our pastor and parish council decided to go $15 million in debt on this beautiful church that we sit in today. This beautiful church will bless us and future generations to come by providing our parish family with a place we can call our spiritual home. You know what I mean? The sights, the smells, the sounds, and the touch of this church truly inflames your heart and soul with the Holy Ghost. You can't help but feel the true presence of Jesus in this church. We're truly blessed with this home, with our pastor, associate pastors, deacons, and staff that love us to heaven. However, that decision has had long-lasting financial consequences, and in our current economic environment, we find ourselves in a monetary pickle. As of this moment, we have $2.4 million left on our debt, and that debt is carried on a variable rate note that adjusts every 3 years. Well, in March of 2024, the rate is going to adjust from 1.95% to 6%, which will cause our interest payments to go from $4,500 to $13,000, an increase of almost $9,000 a month. $9,000 that will go straight to the bank's pockets and not be used within our parish family. As a fellow parishioner, this just makes me sick. And I'm sick and tired of paying money to our second collection on what seems like a never-ending building project. I can't wait for the day when we can stop paying $44,000 a month on a mortgage payment. Can you imagine what we could do with that money, what social concerns we can do? What can we do for our community? What type of missions can we support? I don't know about you, but that is exciting to think about, and I'm ready to do something about it. Let's kill this debt once and for all and never go back. St. James just kicked off in September the Repairing the Foundation Capital Campaign, our first since 2006. We started our 4-class seminar called Godly Finances on 29 August, and on Tuesday we just had our second class entitled Freedom from Debt, a class that teaches us how to get out of debt in our own lives so that we can escape the slavery of debt. Debt is an evil thing, and it destroys our marriages and families. If it is an evil thing in our marriages, how evil is it in our parish family? Jesus tells us in the parable of the ungrateful servant that we must forgive without limit. Otherwise, we will be judged on our lack of forgiveness and compassion. Even in our fallen nature, we are spiritually bent towards the Almighty because we were expressly handcrafted by God to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him. Jesus perfectly modeled that only when we align ourselves is our created nature at peace. From this parable, we know that choking someone that owes us money is not going to get us to heaven, and getting handed over to the torturers is not something that I would relish. So how can we align ourselves with Christ in our current situation? How can we be more compassionate in our own lives? How can we forgive the system that has caused our interest rate to rise? How can we soften our hearts to allow us to now focus on the solution instead of complaining about the problem? Unlike the grace that the king granted to the ungrateful servant, we will not find our bank doing the same. What we can do, however, is for us to become more charitable and pay off this debt before March of 24. That sounds like an impossibility, but with God, anything is possible. Everything that our church does is based on the giving of its members. Father Grassi doesn't have a secret counterfeit money-making plant under the elevator shaft, nor bourbon distillery, nor winery. Our money comes from the good old-fashioned way of donations coming from loving parishioners like you. Our Parish Finance Council has calculated that if every family gives an additional $200 a month, we will have our debt paid off by March of 24. Is that a realistic goal? Yes, it is. If we just made increases to our monthly giving, but also utilize fully the St. Zita's card program, money that you already are spending on groceries, restaurants, Home Depot, Lowe's, fuel, and shopping, a portion goes directly to our parish. Percentages that range from 3 to 10%. This would be no extra cost to you, just an app on your smart device to visit to St. Zita's to purchase the physical cards. If we can pull together in this tug of war that we have at the bank, we can win this and be done with this debt forever. So just like in the ending of Apollo 13, they were able to turn a bad situation into success. Let's reclaim our church from the unforgiving servant and have the best mortgage burning party Easter of 24. May God bless you all. So when Deacon was talking about with Dawn and I, we were horrible stewards of God's money. Not just a little bit, horrible stewards of God's money. I don't know how many times we would try to do the budget, the Quicken budget from heaven, put in some numbers in Quicken, and well, it never worked. And we were constantly in a mess at the end of the month. I think we had every debt product from I think outside of student loans. We didn't have any student loans at the time, but I think everything else from 401k loans to car loans to home equity lines of credit to we were even paying, I think, for appliances a year after we moved out of one of our homes. We were lousy. So Dawn always would try to get me to get on board and join the debt-free program, and I didn't pay any attention. No, we'll just wing it. I don't know how many times if you get it, I said, well, I've got checks left, right? If we have debt, I'll just write the check. And man, she really got ticked off because she's like, we don't have the money. You can't just write a check. There's got to be money in the account to cover it. And as an engineer, you would think that would make sense to me, but I just avoided it because I didn't want to see the problem. So we were driving I think to your parents' house in Philly, and just so had it there was no radio stations, and so Dawn threw on a tape of Dave Ramsey because she had me in the car. I don't even think, did we have kids? Were the kids on there? I think they were sleeping. So it was actually quiet in the car. We were able to pay attention. And after that, I'm like, man, we can do this. We can do this. And I think Dawn was thinking, I've been trying to tell you. And so we came back and we, Chuck and Lynn Welty, who was actually just a parishioner at the time. He's now an ordained deacon. They were actually with us, and we actually looked at multiple programs, and we actually came up with Dave Ramsey's program. So I taught the first class. Dawn and I, we had no idea. You're going to learn from us. We're the poster children for how to not get out of debt. But I said, but you know what? We're going to do this with you guys, and we're going to figure out how to do this. And so I said, the way we looked at it is we said, we're going to do everything he says to do, and if it fails, it's Dave's fault, not mine. But we'll go all in, and we'll just give it everything he said. And so it started out, and I don't know if you guys have listened to Dave Ramsey. But one of the things that he talked about is when we're in debt, it makes decisions for us. If we have debt, we can't change jobs. We can't do things because we owe somebody money. We have to figure out some way to pay our bills. And if it's, you look at, young people today that are coming out of school with $80,000, $100,000 worth of student loan debt, that is a hard nut to crack when you just start out. That's why they live in their, parents' homes. That's why they go back to school. Well, I don't have to pay the debt if I just go back to school. Well, you can't bankrupt that debt. It's going to come back around and get you eventually. So we did everything that Dave said, but the first thing that we did is we started tithing up front, not after the fact. I don't know about you guys. We would get into church, and when the collection basket went by, we would do one of these, and hey, you got any money? We'll put something into the collection basket. We never planned to give. It was just an afterthought. So we would pay all of our bills. We would do all those other things. And our tithe, I shouldn't even say tithe, it was nowhere close to 10%, was just something that we did after the fact. So the big thing is we trusted in God enough to say, let's do that first. And so we actually started giving 10% at that time, and we flipped our budget around, and we started with our giving. And then we went ahead and then started paying off the bills. I think at the time, we were about $85,000 in debt at the time. And in our class, we went through and we paid off $85,000 in about 2 years. We haven't gone back since. We have done a budget every month, since 2008, I think is when we started that. But so the big thing is start with the giving up front, and give something every month. Give what you can give, but make it consistent. Don't do something that's just, an ad hoc, well, whenever I feel like it, I'll give. But give up front. Trust God to be able to give from the first fruits. And just like Father said with last week's on tithing, those first fruits, give to God first. And and Deacon was talking about the I don't know, what was the word that you used, the prosperity gospel. This isn't saying that if you do that you're going to be prosperous, but trust God. If things are meant to be, it's going to work out, and you will find a way to do it. When we have done that ever since. So I don't know if you've listened to Dave Ramsey at all, but he has a thing what we call the 7 baby steps. And we tried doing a lot of these things, but we did them in the wrong order. We did them in the wrong quantity. We tried to do things all together, and we never focused on one thing. In a step program, we just chaos of well, we got to do all of this together. So the first thing that he did was that it's called the mini emergency fund, $1,000 in the bank. So if you have $5,000 in the bank for an emergency fund, you're going to go ahead and take those $4,000 out. Only keep $1,000, and you would then take that additional $4,000 and you would pay that on your smallest debt. The second baby step is the pay off all of your debt outside of your home, but everything else, and you'll list everything smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate. You might think that's kind of stupid. You should use math. Well, if you were using math, you never would have gotten in debt in the first place. So really what you do is and the reason for that is it's more emotional. When you start paying off your debts and you start getting rid of them, you start getting momentum. You start realizing this is working. Because what ends up happening if you start with a school loan up front, that one's going to be around a long time. You want to get some of those quick wins and then use that, your last biggest debt, whatever that might be, would be the one that you then spend your time on. Once you pay off all of your debt, you then go ahead and you fully fund your emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. And this gives you now the money that you have that when because umbrella is meant for a rainy day, because I guarantee you there will be a rainy day in your life. The fourth one is to start kicking into your investments. The fifth baby step is for your kids' college fund, if you've got kids, to fund that. The sixth one is to pay off your house. Once your house is done, then the seventh one is to save and then give a lot away. We will talk more about that in Dave Ramsey's class. It's a 9-week program that we will start. We actually, I think, had it scheduled for next week. We didn't have a lot of people that had signed up yet, and my son-in-law and daughter will be teaching it, so we passed the torch of the class to my kids. So they have done this their whole lives. They've paid everything cash. They've never had debt. And when you guys bought your first house, you had 0 credit score. They said we haven't seen anybody that has nothing. But they were still able to qualify for a home loan. And Nick, how much longer do you have on that?
3 years.
3 years. Mm-hmm. So is it possible? Yes. And you don't have to get in debt. You don't have to have a high credit score. Use cash. Just pay your debts. And matter of fact, don't go into debt is the best way to do it. And another thing that we did is we used the St. Zita's program, because we looked at that as a way that we could give without it costing us anything more than what we were already doing. When you give money into as part of your tithe, that's money coming out of your pocket. Well, it was also good to be able to go and say, well, anything that we can do to help, we will start doing. And I don't know if you've used the Raise Right app. Has anyone used that? It is awesome, because how many times have you gone to Lowe's and you forgot to go get a card, and you spend $400 at Lowe's because you never planned, you didn't realize that you were going to do that, and it happened. You had to go, and I'm not going to go to church tomorrow, and you just don't plan, and you go spend $400, and the church got nothing from it. So now what I can do is in Lowe's, I actually use the Raise Right app. I think I've got $400 in my cart. And I add money right then, and within about 15 seconds, it's available for me to then use, and the church will get money from that purchase. So I use it all the time. So if you haven't done that, it's easy to set up. It's not a difficult thing, and I believe there is some signs, I think, on the bulletin boards that actually have a code that you use that links it to St. James, so that they get. But I think it was 3 to 10% on purchases. And I think Martin's is the highest percentage
that you
get
can't
back.
do on Raise Right.
Right. You have to do those on cards. But Lowe's and Home Depot, I think they're 4% each. But how many times do you go to Lowe's and spend under $20? Or it's something. It seems like it's always something big that you go to Lowe's or Home Depot for.
How does that work? Like,
It actually has a little barcode. So what you do is you add money to a Lowe's card, and then you click on there's a little icon, and it produces a barcode with a pin. You just scan that barcode in, type in your 4-digit pin, and it will pay your bill. Now, obviously, it's coming out of your account. It's not free money, but it's able to be something that you can do on the fly, and not have to come back to St. Zita's to get a card.
oh,
And I know that we have personally missed out on thousands of dollars of things that we've done that the church never got because we didn't have the cards in advance.
yeah, because I've wanted to do that, but
So you talk to Marie after class tonight. Marie will help get you all set up and show you how to do it.
okay.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed like one of those things that was too good to be true. This can't be.
Yeah. And it is, and it will tell you right away when you buy it on how much the parish gets for every purchase you make. And I think there's a service fee of 29 cents is what it costs. So you don't have to pay a service fee in St. Zita's, but online you pay 29 cents and you can get the cards. So it's for us. I don't. And Deacon, how many people are utilizing that now? Is it
Not as many as we like. Anna, do you know the number?
I don't know that I don't,
Okay.
but it is really. I think it's just people not thinking of how handy the phone comes in for this.
Yeah.
Because there's actually we at St. Zita we don't have cards for Blaze, but I don't know if you've been to that pizza place downtown. You can buy a Blaze card right there
Right.
on your phone.
right? Because it's not limited to what we have in St. Zita's. It is everything that is part of.
So whatever you are, wherever you can be, you can check and see if they have the place available on the app.
Yep.
And
You
it's-
You can even do
it's
Amazon
going-
purchases. You can get an Amazon card as well and be able to use that for Amazon, Walmart. You can use that in Sam's Club. I think that they don't have Costco. I think they've got Sam's Club, but they don't have Costco as part of that.
And then it's a $25 card, so you pay $25.
$25.29
And
Yep.
then the company gets
gives money to St. James.
they give money to St.
Mhm.
James.
So you still have you've got $25 on your card that you can use, money that you were already going to spend. You don't give. It's not that you get $20 on your card and then that $5 goes to St. James. No, you get the whole $25 that you get to
Too
spend.
good to be true.
It's awesome. And how much? What has been our total the St. Zita's program, even without the Raise Right app, is how much has that added to our
St. Zita's
payoff?
has paid around $1 million of our mortgage. So really, when you think of our St. Vita volunteers and those who have participated, they're right in the $1 million range of what they paid for us.
Because there's so many companies that
Mhm.
participate.
Yeah, Martin's may, by the time we get done, Martin's may top $1 million themselves.
Yeah, it is. In Glory Days is another good one that gives a large percentage.
20%.
20%.
And then if you bring the receipt back and put it in the box in St. Zita's, then they give another 10%, I think, and that goes to the medical fund.
Yeah.
They're
You
very
just have to
generous.
bring your receipt back and put it in the box in St. Zita's.
And it really helps when you budget as well, right? Because you're using we use the St. Zita's program to do our budgeting. If we have $750 that we're putting into a home fund for doing repairs, then you can buy a $750 card and you can use that until it goes to zero, and then you can start the next month's budget. But really, for us, it was planning. It was doing things in advance and not doing it whenever it felt like it. Whenever we were thinking about it.
Whenever you had to.
Right. Is we started doing this as something that's more consistent with giving of giving our 10%. We did that, and people always say, should you tithe on the gross or the net? Well, I don't. How about you just give? Some people I think worry about the little things on this. Is how about just be consistent with giving? Give something, and it'd be better off than what we've got for people today, because it's not that they don't want to give, they just don't plan to give. They don't make it part of their daily, monthly activities. And if they would just spend some time in advance of planning for that, we would have this debt paid off. And especially, and we're not going to go back in any more debt.
Nope.
Yeah. And you know what?
Me either.
And I did say that, I said debt was evil. It's not evil. But there's just nothing good in the Bible that talks about debt. It's always talked in the negative sense. Because it did allow us to have this church. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's that deferred gratification. I want something right now, so I'm going to go ahead and get it on credit.
Well, like me, I never knew about finances and stuff, so
yeah.
Everything is an experiment.
Yeah. But I wish this would be taught in high school.
Yeah.
It's something that before you can get out of high school, you need to be able to show compounding interest. You need to understand that of what would happen if you were able to save money young. And we did that with all of our kids. My son Jake, I think he's got $125,000 in his college fund. But if he goes to seminary, he won't use that for anything. And you go look at what would that value be of that money 40 years from now. It's good. And people talk about, well, I'm going to be a millionaire as if I hit the lottery. No, people that are regular people that are doing school teachers and plumbers and nurses. These people are all, if you do it right and you spend less than what you make, you can actually do that on your own. You plan for it. And it's amazing. It's never too late to start. People say, well, I'm just too old. Well, no, you're not. You're still breathing. It's not too late. Is it better if you can get started, when you were 17, 14 years old? Yes, but all we can do is to be where to realize where we are at today and fix it. And I remember one of the stories that we had in our class. We had a lady that was sitting right over there, and she came up at the end of class and she said, this budget thing doesn't work. And I said, well, what do you mean it doesn't work? She said, well, I did it all together. And she says, I'm negative $400 every month. And I said, well, that doesn't mean that the budget's not working. It's showing you what your problem is of why you don't have any money at the end of the month. It's because she was spending it all. And I said, really what the budget does is it shows you, I always look at it too as the budget is something restricting. This is going to be something that limits what I can do. And really it's liberating. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that you have Dawn's purse fund and she wants to get a really nice purse. Well, plan on giving, putting that money towards that purse fund. And when it hits $280 or whatever it was, my gun fund, same thing. Then you don't have the guilt of spending the money because you plan to give. Otherwise, before you would say, oh, well, if I go and spend money on, well, do I have any money to pay the groceries? Well, yes. And really when we found in our budget was if we lived our life in our budget, we didn't have to pay attention to the checking balance. Before we were paying attention to the checking balance. And now so long as we didn't spend more money than we took in, I'm not going to have a zero. I'm not going to get zero balance. And I think that was for me is we actually turned off our overdraft protection. We had a credit card that was used just for we never overdrew it, but I don't know, there was just something about having that as well, just in case. And that was the last credit card. How many credit cards do we cut up? 35? And actually, Nick, is it in there? Go grab it. Yep. But we did, and we came out. We had so many cards, and Nick's going to pull out. One of the things we do is a credit card shredding event where we pull out that card. Pull out the card that you've had ever since college. The one that was the special one that gave you free pizza.
We need to get a new payment center here.
Is it in that bottom right or bottom left?
I can attest to that. As a young couple, we lived on credit cards.
Yeah.
Got to the point
Oh,
where
it's
I
on the bottom right.
had an installment
You went all the way
every day
back.
of the month.
Oh, I see it.
And that's what'll happen to you. You'll have an installment every day of the month. You're going to pay on something.
Because they know if they can get the credit card companies, we're the most highly marketed. Debt is the most highly marketed thing in our lives. Everything you see. How many times do you watch on TV and you see, do you ever see what the car costs? 0% down, $700 a month. Well, how much is the car going to cost? I don't know. It's it's like 5 years. It used to be 3 years, 4 years. I don't know what they have. Car loans, 6-year car loans now, because they realize if I can get that first dollar out of your pocket, then I can get that money before somebody else. So we just stopped. I mean, we use a debit card for everything. We don't have a single credit card to our name, just because it's like an alcoholic. If you don't drink anything. So we just said, well, if we're going to do this, we're just never going to do it again because we were so bad with it. It's not saying that people talk about, well, I'm going to get miles and I'm going to get all these other things, benefits that credit card company, airline miles. They just know that you're going to 8 out of 10 people don't pay that off at the end of the month. So really, did it work out well for you? And then it starts a little, it's $100, it's $300, it's, something that emergency is always there. And next thing you know, you look at your credit card and you've got $5,000. It just will sneak up on you. So we just changed our lives at that point. And what's nice about it, we've done it with all the kids every month. We would do a new budget with them. We don't, I guess they all have bought their cars. Gosh, we've had, they purchased Mini Cooper, BMW 3 Series. My 17-year-old has got a BMW 5 Series that he got used. They've got nicer cars than I'm driving, but they paid that cash. And I remember when Jake drew that Chick-fil-A, people said, "Well, oh my gosh, did your dad buy that for you?" Nope, I bought that. It's something that he's proud of. They mow yards, they do any of those things. And I think that's how Peter started with his landscaping business, is just a way to produce some income. Actually, I think when we left on vacation, and I think we had Peter stay at our house with Claire, and Peter started mowing our yard. And I think after that, Peter was like, I can do this. And his business has gone crazy since then.
All cash.
All cash.
All cash.
Yep. But I think.
So just a few other things I'll add in.
And I don't have anything more, Deacon.
No,
so
stay up here, Bryce. So just on the credit things, I was blessed. My wife and I, when we first got married, we went to a conference on women in Arlington, Virginia. So I thought this will be cool. I mean, I'm getting married. I'm married. I don't know a lot about women, and I could learn more. It was actually a women's conference, so it was about 500 women, my brother, myself, and one other guy there. It was great. It was very humbling, but I will be grateful forever. One of the talks that was given was there was a Supreme Court decision in the early 70s that actually changed a good bit of our debt. Before that, if a husband and wife went in to buy a house, they would only consider the husband's income, because it was considered that the woman was going to have babies and stay home and have children. So therefore, the mortgage, when you got pre-approved, was based upon the husband's salary. So some woman gets upset, they can't buy the house they want, she sues. She ends up winning. If you go back and look, what you'll find in Arlington, Virginia, during this time period, in about 3 years, the price of housing completely doubled. Why? The banks realized immediately, we can now include both incomes. What's the problem with that? So by the grace of God, we heard this talk early on. So we knew that when we ever bought a house, whether the children had come yet or not, that we would only base it upon my income, so that we would always have the option of Laura staying home with the kids. And so when she would go to the grocery store and people would say, "What do you do?" "Well, I stay home with my kids." "You are so lucky." And she would "I am so mad. I am not lucky. We made good decisions." Laura, just be kind, right? It's okay, right? But what happened is that was my first understanding that the bank in that situation wasn't my friend. It wasn't the friend of a traditional family. It was there to make money off of me. And so, like I said, I had this conversion. And so after I started working for the church, I really wanted to go into no debt ever again. And our pastor at the time, Father Brian Owens, convinced me to buy my house, which was behind Old St. James. I didn't have money to buy the house cash. So I said, but I don't really believe in debt. And he, like Dave Ramsey, well, it doesn't apply to your house. Well, I think it does apply to my house. Why not just save so I can buy the house? And so I did it, and it just ate me up. And so, I wanted to pay it off. But the one piece that was missing for me is that since I had these student loans, I really believe that the reason that that I had really developed these habits is because I wanted to pay those loans off quickly. So my goal for my children was always that they would have student loans. And so this is where Bryce and Don come back into the story. So I think our Choose His Life was actually 2013. So Bryce goes to a meeting of all the churches in Jefferson County to talk about their families in debt. And really the concern was, as he said, the amount of turmoil that money causes in our marriage is incredible. So Scripture says very clearly, you cannot serve both God and mammon. And so many people are trying to choose both. And so these ministers were really gathering together, and what can we do about debt? And so they were talking about this Dave Ramsey program, and Bryce sent me the minutes. And so it said, this church was somewhat supportive. And then it said, and St. James was somewhat supportive. I was so mad at Bryce.
Yes, he was.
I called him the next day. What are you talking about? Every time you do this crazy class, I don't have any debt. The only debt I have is my mortgage. And I stand up there and I make these advertisements for you, and you tell me that we're only somewhat supportive? What do you want from me? And he said something really profound. He's like, I'm going to get our whole parish out of debt. It's fine that you're out of debt. Do you care about everyone else's soul too? Like, Bryce. So that was really the idea. And so what happened is we did this program. We offered it to everybody. We actually developed our own kids program to help them. One of the most heartbreaking things for me in the years since then is that couples who have come to me and say, our marriage is a wreck. We have so much debt. I don't trust him with the money.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we did the financial peace thing in 20? Oh, I was too busy. I couldn't make it. We had like 13 classes a week. Like, what do you mean you couldn't make it? We went one time, and it just wasn't for me. And so over the years, how could we get more involved in it? But so just a little story. So Father told us last week that if you tithe and you give your first to God, then all the rest of the money will go to God as well. It'll follow suit. And what Bryce was saying is when you have debt, the debt tells you where the money's going to go. God never gets a chance to tell you, and you don't get a chance. As opposed to, and so the one thing that he said, so at the time I was using credit cards, and I paid them off in full every month because I got free points for hotel stays at Holiday Inns Express from when I used to work for Sherwin-Williams. And so I loved having this free money, particularly because we weren't making a lot. This was something we could do.
Free money.
But then what happened is, Dave made this point, when you pay on credit, on average we pay 20% more. It doesn't hurt. Because it hurts more when you pay cash. And I had a parishioner who called me out and said, Deacon Dave, you're asking all of us to do this, and you pay yours off in full? But where's your trust? Will you cut yours up? I got upset with them too. I'm sorry I get upset so much, right? But anyways, I cut it up and haven't gone back. And really, because of that, by the grace of God, the other thing that we talked about in that is when you take loans, like for my kids, if they would have taken student loans, then I'm expecting the bank to teach my children how to manage money. And Dave's like, why would you do that? You already know how to manage money. It was such a gift. So really by cutting that up, our expenses did go down 20%. And even working here at the church then is working with our children. They were all able to get out of college debt-free because we made a commitment that we weren't going to take debt. Our car's a little different. We had the deal on Ford Tauruses for under $2,000. So I got 3 girls. I got them into their own cars for under $2,000 from Thomason's on old Ford Tauruses, which just drove great for them. And even one of them blew up a Taurus, and we got another Taurus. So they did a good job. So in the scripture, it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And so what we are called to do, again, you've heard it said to your ancestors, do not take a false oath, but make good to the Lord all that vow. But I say to you, do not swear at all, not by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot make a single hair white or black. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything more is from the evil one. That's really partly where our obligation to pay back all of our debts. When we took a loan from somebody, we said, I will pay you back. And because you and I call ourselves Christians, our yes has to mean yes. Or else we bring not only dishonor to ourselves, but dishonor to our Lord. That Christian, he ripped us off. He said he believed in Christ, but he didn't pay his bills. So we have to let our yes be yes and our no be no. And so I would encourage, whether those here or those who are watching from home, it's not that Dave Ramsey is the Bible. Are there other ways to get out of debt? Yep. Sure. Mm-hmm. What Nick has found, Bryce has found, I have found, it's a pretty good method. If you just follow the steps, it works. And so none of us claim to be geniuses. As Bryce said, he's an engineer. But before he put these 7 steps into place, he just couldn't get it right. It wasn't the motivation. And so certainly I found the same thing. And so then what happened is that really I was blessed to be able to, I mentioned last week when we paid off our house, I wrote a thank you to Bryce and Dawn because what they showed me was really the path that I needed to have no debt and to pay it off. And so our hope is through this repairing the foundation that as brothers and sisters in Christ who are not just worried about themselves, not just worried about our parish, but truly worried about their other brothers and sisters in Christ and just wanting to share the good that God has done in our lives and somehow be able to help others. Any questions?
You said about credit card. I wanted to ask, you said if you have a credit card,
yeah,
you're spending 20%. I don't understand.
Yeah, so what happens is, so Dave has,
Actually,
go ahead.
The best example I can give on this one, Father, is an easy pass on your vehicle. If you've got an easy pass, you can jump on the toll road and you can get on the toll road and you just have no idea that you just spent $4.80 to go from here to Dulles because it's just a blinking green light that happens. Same thing with the credit card. The credit card becomes something that, well, I'm got a steak dinner. I'm just gonna pull out my credit card. I'll put it on. But if you were paying cash for it, you can say, well, I only have $20 in my pocket. Well, I'm going to change how I order things because I only have X number of dollars. So Easy Pass, I always talk with people, I'm like, do you really know how much you're spending? Go drive from here to New York with an Easy Pass. How much did you just spend on tolls?
So
no idea.
I'll give an example. I didn't have any cash in my pocket, and I was driving up the Eastern Corridor for something. And I'm like, Lord, how am I going to get through this? I just have no idea, right? So I get to the toll booth, and it just opens. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, God is so good, right? And so then, I'm going over into New York City. It's like $14 to go across one of those bridges. Boom, opens up. Like, I cannot believe this is fantastic.
The bill's on its way.
No, this is before that. My father-in-law had borrowed our van and had left his Easy Pass in the van. And man, I just like $100 of tolls went on his thing. And just like, and I'm telling you, I never thought anything of it. And about 3 or 4 months later, my father-in-law was like, Laura, have you seen my Easy Pass? Easy Pass.
Oh.
My father-in-law paid all my bills. How lovely, right? So what happens is, and so what he really encourages is you use a debit card. That way, it can function as a credit card if you need to. But the moment that you put it in, you're taking money out of your account. So it's cold, hard cash coming out. So that, you're on vacation and you budgeted $1,000 for your vacation. And this was a temptation that happened for me. Sometimes you go on vacation, it's the end of the season, and kayak places have beautiful kayaks on sale. Right? Well, then the kayak's 50% off. You got to buy it. Like, right? Oh, I don't have the cash. Oh, but I have my credit card. Well, and I can make it up to $500 by the end of the next month and do it, right? So then what happens is, and even with the St. Zita card, so this is what he would say, and I can tell you that this works. So what I did, so keep in mind, when I was using a credit card and paying off full at the end of the month, I would buy my groceries with my credit card. Then the bill comes in 25 days later, and then there's this grace period. So by the time I am actually paying for the groceries, I ate them a month and a half ago. It actually hurts. So when I pay the bill, I'm getting nothing. So what he says is you actually budget that up front. So what happens is we cut the credit cards, so now we're back to zero. But then what's even better, because I buy my gift cards from St. Zita's, I pay for my St. Zita cards, like for the month of September, I bought them at the end of August. So like on August 26th, I bought my card. So here's what's really cool. Like when I go fill up my tank, like I can't believe it. I just hit the jackpot. Because I put it in, there's no more cash coming out of my pocket. There's nothing doing anything. Because I already paid for it up front. So what happens, Father, when you make that adjustment, that swing, so it's about a 60-day swing, what happens is you're paying up front rather than in the rears. And when you're paying up front, you're asking myself, do I really need this? Is this what I really want? Is this how God wants me to spend my money? As opposed to, I owe that bill, I better pay it before all of a sudden I get hit with 19% interest. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
The reason I asked is because I was in the impression, the way you said that is just having a credit card is 20%.
No.
Yeah. But it's not, you got to use the credit card.
Yeah, use it. Yeah.
You said, I have a credit card.
Yeah.
I don't use it.
Yeah.
But I have it.
Yeah.
Because there have been times when they don't accept cash now. You go to places, and I don't have a debit card.
Right.
So that if they don't accept cash, and I have to pay for something, then I would use a credit card. But I know how much I'm spending, and I'm doing it reluctantly, and I'm fighting all the way to try to get him to take my cash.
So in my case, I tried to do that, but my wonderful parishioners said I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to cut up my card, and Bryce told me to use my debit card, and I really can trust you. Bryce has been very kind and patient with me. That's why I'm really grateful he's going to be ordained, because I would give him every reason why I couldn't do these things. So Bryce, that won't work. No, this won't work. This won't work. No, actually try this. No, Bryce, that won't work. And everything Bryce has told me to try actually works. So that's what I've done in my case.
I must say though, an Easy Pass, if you're driving from here up to Maine, it's a whole lot faster with an Easy Pass.
Yes, it is.
Waiting those long lines, how much gas you spend.
It is so convenient.
It is.
But it's also
I mean,
cheaper.
come on.
You
And-
pay less. You
Then
pay
you pay
less
less
with
with
the
the
Easy
Easy
Pass
Pass
than
on
if you
many
have.
things.
It is. And it's not saying that Easy Pass is bad, but what people don't realize is it's costing you money. And because I would do the Dulles Toll Road because I was paying $150 a month doing the toll road. Well, Baghdad, I'm just going to leave early and I'm going to take 28 south. I get to work just as fast, and I'm not spending $150 a month. I just really paid attention to how I used my Easy Pass, and I just didn't jump in and wait for the light. And what's wild about it, you don't even need an Easy Pass today. You drive through it today, you will get a bill in the mail.
Right, they just send
The
it.
bill's
They-
still more expensive than the Easy Pass.
Yep.
Yes, it is. It's true.
Yeah. So we want to be clear. We're not telling people not to get an Easy Pass. What we're saying to you though is to keep in mind that all of those things which incur automatic payments, that's all taking ownership of your money. Anytime that you do something like that, that's taking ownership. You have to be aware of it, and it's costing. And so when someone says, I can't, what Bryce has shared with you is, let's just say he wanted to give $150 more to the church. Because he was using Easy Pass to go on the toll road, all he has to do is take 28, and now he gives $150 to his church, which he loves, and it actually cost him nothing on his budget. It just cost him getting up 5 minutes earlier and taking 28 rather than the Easy Pass. So I just want to make sure that we have no moral issue with Easy Pass, except for it does take away jobs from the nice ladies and men who used to be in the toll booth who don't have jobs anymore. But that's another moral issue that we'll save for another time.
If I cut up my Easy Pass, can I put it in the jar?
Yes, you can. However, the shredder that we use will not accept the Easy Pass. We'll have to do that one with
Your
with
tractor.
an axe.
You could use the tractor and smash it up.
There you go. I'll have to pretty sure.
If you have a credit card, make sure you know how much you're putting on it, and at the end of the month, you can pay it off, and you'll be interest free. They won't charge you any interest if you pay it off monthly.
Yep. And it's
If you've got to have it.
But you
and
know,
it's not something that we just did it to stop doing it because we were so bad at it. It's not saying that, to use a credit card is an evil thing, but you just have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And we just got to the point to where we said, we're just so bad with money and how we were doing things, we're just going to cut them up. And so we're not going to be tempted to use them at all. And, and gosh, even when at, what's that store over the clothing store by Home Depot? Kohl's. Dawn would go and she'd be like, "Oh, you can if you get the Kohl's cash and the card, you can go and you can get another 10% off." So she would go buy things and then she would walk straight over to the counter and she would pay it off. We're just like, you know what, just pay for it.
Yeah. I had the experience really just about 5 years ago. My parents had a car that they weren't using, so it was pretty near the end of its life. We gave a car away, so then we just had the one car. So I was going to use this to get back and forth to work. So I just put liability insurance on it, and we went skiing, and we hit a deer on the way home. Totaled the van. Because we have made the decision to not use credit. Many of you may have seen me. I walked to church for about 90 days from my house. What was I doing? I was saving money, and eventually... at AutoServe, there was a car for $5,000, which I saved during my time that I was walking. I cut off my insurance at all, and then I just put it in, and I just kept looking for a car that I could buy for cash. And so, it's really that idea of an old-fashioned thing is try to save more than you spend, and try to save more than you spend, and
don't buy it till you have it.
Thanks.
Hey, Deacon, is my Honda still working?
Yeah, your Honda's still working.
So I got to the point of saying I had 433,000 miles on my Honda Accord, and I'm like, I'm going to keep driving it. I'm going to keep driving this thing, and finally we ended up getting when Don's father passed away, we ended up getting a new car from that, and so I went ahead and I'm like, well, I don't need to keep the car because we've already got another one. So I donated it back to church, and I think I saw that in the parking lot about 5 months ago.
Yeah, so what happens, he donated it. A young woman took the car that he donated. She saved her money. She then bought a car. She donated the Honda back, and then we were able to give it to another person. And so it's really that idea of how can I use the good that God has given me to really benefit others.
Yeah. And it kind of becomes something prideful. I wanted to see how many warning lights can I get onto the dash of my car and still have it work. And it had no air conditioning. Nobody wanted to ride with me in the vehicle at work. And it became just something of saying, you know what? I'm proud of this vehicle. Just because it had a point of not wanting to go in debt on something else. And I'm like, I'm just going to drive this stew out of it.
Anyone else? Any questions? So before we have Father give us a blessing, I do want to recognize the questions and stuff too. I know that debt has just hurt so many people's lives and caused an absolute wreck. God has some principles. The Timberlakes and Nick and Paige have a nice class that has good, prudent ideas that help. And really what we want to try to communicate with this is that while we're trying to repair the foundation of our church by paying off the debt, we really want to help our families repair their foundation. St. Augustine tells us that marriage is really the foundation of society. A husband and wife faithfully living with each other, raising their children to know God, is what society is based upon. And certainly one of those things which has destroyed that in our society is debt coming in and people then having the money control their lives and no longer having that to God. And so we just want to offer assistance and help people get there to find that freedom of following God and letting your yes be yes.
So check the bulletin on when that class will be. And Deacon, what's our class next week?
Our class next week is saving, right? So for those who have something, if you follow these principles, then how do you really start saving wherever you're at in life? And so like Bryce said, that whether you're a 15-year-old kid and you have your first job, you're mowing lawns and you want to save that money, Whether you're 65 years old and you're like, ooh, I never saved anything, then you go from there. Save more than you spend, spend less than you make. If you save more than you spend and spend less than you make, you'll never be in financial difficulties. That's my little adage. I'm sorry. And Cody will be with us next week, and he'll take the lead for us.
We got some fun financial planning strategies and tax saving strategies. Good. Nobody likes nobody likes tipping the IRS.
Nope.
No. That's right. That check that shows up in the beginning of the year is not free money.
Can we have your blessing, Father? And, I just please, if you have any interest in the class on financial peace, contact Bryce or Nick. Follow the ad in the bulletin, contact the office, so that if we have a good feedback, then we can get a class started now and in the spring.
Yeah, and I think actually because of some scheduling conflicts, we're moving the class that we were going to start in just a week or so. We're going to be moving that to the Lenten season. So we'll be starting that in the new year.
Or if we get enough interest.
Yeah, if we get enough interest, we can
Yes.
start one. Yeah, sure.
Just one quick thing too, what they said about marriages and money. If you could be a fly on the wall in my office, I could tell you that many couples are near divorce often because of money. So it's not fake, because I see it in my office quite frequently, and the people that you would never expect. So it really causes a lot of problems. So I just wanted to reiterate that with what they've said. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we adore you and praise you. We thank you for the material gifts that you've given us, all the ways that you show us how to not only be fruitful in what we do for you, but also fruitful in this life. We ask, Lord, that you give us the grace to be truly good stewards of what we have been given, so that we might serve you first and allow the people of God to see the love that we have for you through our love for each other. Father, we ask that you bless us this night. Bless especially Bryce and Dawn in Thanksgiving for what they've shown so many people already here. And please continue to allow others to come on board so that they might see the benefits of all of these programs. Through the intercession of Mary, the Immaculate Conception, may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you.